This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network.
AvenuePodcast.net.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And I want to encourage all of you out there to listen to Give a Dad a Podcast. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It is time for another episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. And this is actually my last interview recorded episode of the year. You will find another one just a little later in this week. It's going to be a little different. But this one is the last interview that I do of the year. And it was with somebody that I really enjoyed talking to. And that is Travis Truebourne. He is known as the Iron Referee. He has reffed all over the area. He's got about 20 years experience in the business. And I'm very excited to talk with him today. We talk about all kinds of stuff. We kind of just run the gambit when it comes to different subjects on this show. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Travis Truebourne episode, welcome. I hope that you enjoy what you hear. And I hope that you stick around and listen to some of the other great episodes I have here as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Hey, Dad.
So where did you actually train at?
I made a really good career out of being able to bump, sell, and I had a punch me face.
I wasn't about to call you dad, so.
Seriously?
I felt like I was in an anime or something.
People get really mad at those videos for some reason. Like it triggers certain people. Yeah.
Wow.
I was actually lost as an infant, and I was taken in by a traveling group of independent wrestlers.
I love it. I'm excited for this one.
Bro.
Get punched in the face on the daily.
Do you always do these interviews with your shirt off?
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
3S360 Moment Video Booth. What it is it's something unique. It's not like a regular photo booth. You can put these at any event, whether it be a large one or a small one, and people can make their own videos. What you do is you stand on this platform, and there's a camera that goes all the way around you. You can have people on there with you to do goofy poses or whatever it is. But what it does is it makes these events memorable. We all know that we want to make memories when we do this. We take pictures, we take videos. So what this does is it helps you to make a very unique experience. And the cool thing is when you have this device there, it is immediately shareable to your own devices. So reach out to 3S360 Moments Video Booth today to get them at your next big event. You can reach them at 3S360 Moments Photo Booth at gmail.com. I will have the email address in my show notes, but to make those events memorable, to have that unique experience, get them out there today. All right, everybody. So this is actually my last recording of 2023. The next episode that you're going to hear will be something completely different, but I'm very excited about this one. It's actually, this one was somebody who was referred to me by Thrash. As you know, he was my Christmas episode last year, and we talked about Christmas metal music and all kinds of stuff. Well, he told me about this man and said that he has somewhere around 20 years in the business and has all kinds of stories and would love to hear some of those. And I thought that was a great idea. He is known as the Iron Referee. He's a Texas-based referee. He works with Matt War Pro, MPX, and many other places as well. I'm talking about Travis Truebourne. Man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm excited for this one. I had Thrash on here, like I said, last year, and he sent me a message one day and he was like, "Hey, I have a request for you." I was like, "Okay." And you know, I kind of knew about you because I watch MPX and things like that. So I was aware of who you were, but I'd never talked to you before he had brought that up. So I'm glad that we're here now to where we can kind of, you know, talk about everything that you've done.
Oh, well, have we got enough time? I hope so. Let's see. Might want to open up a six pack for this one. Let's see. Well, good night, everybody. No, well, basically for me, I started really, I started back in, I want to say 2000, 1999, or a little bit after 2000, a little bit 2000, 2001.
Okay.
And I jumped into working security for NWA Southwest, and now I'm currently a referee for everybody else. That's a story within itself.
So how did you get into wrestling as like everybody else at a young age, or what was your thing that drew you to wrestling?
You know what is funny? My dad was like flipping channels one day. Like I knew what wrestling was. I knew who Hulk Hogan was and Ultimate Warrior. I really wasn't really watching a whole bunch back then when I was really, really young. Because I'm 43 years old, so do the math on that. I was born in 1980. I started learning about wrestling right around 1983 is when WrestleMania first happened, and I think that's when it was kind of, the talk on TV. And at some point around the kids that I was hanging around with, everybody had at least a Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter doll or something like that, Andre the Giant doll. And I just thought they were action figures. I didn't know what they were. I just thought, hey, everybody's got toys, yay! and then like probably about 2 years later, I'm over at a friend's house. I'm staying the night. We're just little kids. Your best friend, staying with your best friend, whatever. And then all of a sudden, he turns on this wrestling show, and I started watching. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, we didn't have. If we had cable, I had no idea how to watch it on TV, and I wasn't really kind of interested at the time when I was at like 5 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
Fast forward till I'm about 12, 13 years old. Bret Hart, and he's starting. I think Bret Hart just won an opportunity to face. Face. I want to say it was. Can't remember who it was at the champion time, but Bret had won an opportunity to challenge for the World Heavyweight title in WWE. Owen Hart was very physically upset about that whole ordeal, and that whole storyline in itself was just what hooked me into it. I was like, what's going to happen next? And then, sure enough, over a period of time, Bob Backlund comes into it, and it just took off for me from there. I was just hooked. I would watch wrestling no matter what channel it was on or who it was. WCW kind of came into play when I started to find out who Ric Flair was. I had friends that knew that I started to watch wrestling because I started talking about it at school, and then someone had mentioned to me about the scaffold match between the I want to say it was the Midnight Express versus the Road Warriors, and it was just I got to sit back and watch that 85 I think it was either 85, 86 scaffold match. I can't remember what the pay-per-view was, but I remember watching that and just wondering, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Fast forward till maybe I was about 15 years old. I'm watching everything. I'm recording things. I got a friend of mine that's got one of those black boxes, and he's got the Madison Square Garden channel. So I'm picking up ECW back then in the early 90s, like when I'm a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
Right around 1996, 97 is when NWA Southwest opened its doors over here in Northwestern Hills. And then I started to attend those shows there. So I would go every Friday night. Of course, as a kid, I'm failed to mention this. As a kid, my grandparents used to watch, the Global Championship Wrestling on TV. So it was always the Von Erichs and Skandar Akbar and all those guys up there.
Great stuff.
So, I mean, it's hard for me to really kind of say the whole issue, how wrestling just kind of like fell into my lap. It was like a part of my whole life in some form or another.
It seems like it was all around you the entire time. So it's almost destined that you were going to do this.
No matter where I went, something about wrestling was coming up, and it was just like, okay, fine, I'll take a view of this. Really, I mean, come on. Fine, you got me. Albeit the wrestling gods, I will pay attention. So, so I started looking into it, and then one day I'm watching TV, and I never had any aspirations to be a wrestler until after I had seen this guy Mankind show up, and then Mick Foley was probably, in my opinion, was the greatest character as Mankind.
Yeah.
And then I fell in love with that because, of course, I knew who he was from ECW. I knew who he was from World Championship Wrestling, but the Mankind character, it's the very, base version of what Mankind was supposed to have been and where he came from. That character just really sat with me.
Right.
And it was a different character altogether because he was doing it not for his sake, but for your sake.
Yes.
It wasn't about, it was never about, what he had to gain out of it. He didn't feel like he had anything to gain. He had to do it because he couldn't stand the way others perceived them as being greater than someone as low as he was. So he had to bring people down to his level. It's almost like a Raven character in a way.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was just a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more maniacal, I guess, in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And innocent in a way. Innocent, very innocent. He was a heel character to me that I thought was a very innocent character, which was a very layered view of that whole character and everything else like that. So and then watching the matches he did, and then you see the match off the cage, and you're just like, oh man. Later on, he writes a book, and the first thing I do after and at this point, I'm probably a senior in high school or something like that, and I'm talking about being a professional wrestler at this point because I'm going to wrestling shows every Friday. I don't care what it is. I will take off work to go watch wrestling. I got involved with the tape trading people, with all that and trying to find out who had what. And somewhere I still have videos that people had given me probably years after the whole tape trading thing had happened, and our video had basically killed that whole ordeal. And I have videos that somebody had given me because I loved watching videos that nobody got to see. Episodes of things that nobody else got to see, like the fan cam stuff from ECW.
Yeah,
that was some of that stuff is some of the best matches you never see live on TV.
Right.
And any wrestler will tell you this. Anytime you're not being filmed, some of the best wrestling matches are in front of probably a handful of people or a whole bunch of people that nobody recorded.
Yeah.
And it's the saddest thing too, because some of that stuff is gold. And if it had made airways somewhere, it would have been great.
I actually have somebody who I've been looking for this. There's a copy of it somewhere, but there was a match between Jason Jones and Tim Rockwell. And I guess it was a street fight. And everybody tells me how great this match was. And there was one person that recorded it, but nobody can find the recording for it.
And that's something.
Yeah.
If we could find the recording.
I know.
Just in case the Tampa Bay Bucks weren't put on top of it for whatever reason. No one put a piece of tape over it.
Yeah.
Don't need the greatest hits of Golden Girls being recorded over on top of this because he couldn't stand to watch that match. I mean, I have to know. I have to know.
Yeah.
I went to graduated high school, went to college very next day. I started college the very next day. Started working full time. I was just miserable where I was at. All I did was watch wrestling and talk about wrestling, think about wrestling. We're going to work, and I was a vendor, and I was working for a major soda company at the time, and I was I was filling up the grocery shelves with product and everything else, and it got to the point to where I was just so miserable that it started to kind of physically act out on it. Eventually, an opportunity came along for me to move back up here to the Fort Worth area, and I got here, and no sooner did I get here that I started, associating all my friends from high school back then, and my friend Cody, and I'll give him credit to this because my friend Cody Wiggins, that I went to high school with, he's probably the guy that was my foot in the door. Needless to say, he's like, "Hey man, so that wrestling show that's over off of 26?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, do you want to like go work that show?" "Yeah, absolutely." "Yeah, okay. So you're my cousin, and we're gonna make sure that we can get you in because you're keeping in the family." "Oh, because that's how you did it back then." I mean, back in the earlier 20 years ago.
Yep.
You had to know somebody to get in a lot of times. I mean, you could get in to the wrestling business and work for a show, but to get in to work for a show was they did everything they could to protect it at the time,
right?
Because
right.
It was hotter than nails on a tin roof back then, and at that time, there were 3 organizations. There were countless other independent shows that were going on at the time. Everybody's trying to make it to the big time. Everybody's stepping on each other's feet.
Yeah.
Everything they could do. I mean, it was cutthroat. It was real big cutthroat business. But everybody respected one another, but it was a cutthroat business. You know, you did what you had to do it to get yourself out there.
Right.
And the guys were different back then. The guys that were training back then were different. These kids nowadays are coming up. They didn't have the type of training that I had, you know. I worked for NWA Southwest as security, and then I got onto the actual video crew. Somewhere in between there, Texas Championship Wrestling started renting the building on a Friday night, and it was owned by a guy by the name of John Allen. And John Allen had actually bought the company from somebody else at the time. And on Friday nights, he would rent out the building so that he could produce his show, Texas Championship Wrestling. Well, I was wanting to start going to school. I wanted to learn how to do this. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to be, you know, the biggest thing since sliced bread. You know, I was going to be the next Mankind. In my mind, I was going to be the next Mankind. And it wasn't long after that when I first met Chris Richter and discovered how green he was back then. Met a bunch of guys from the indie circuit at that point. Of course, Necro Butcher was working there. Dylan was working there.
Okay.
When Necro Butcher was facing off against John Allen, who had the Cookie Monster gimmick thing going on. That was an interesting gimmick.
I've heard about that. Yeah, I've never seen it.
He would come. His theme music, his entrance music was "C is for cookie, and that's good enough for me." He would come out tossing Oreos and Chips Ahoy cookies to everybody, and then he would have a hardcore match and bleed all over the place, and then go hug kids and kiss babies.
Oh my gosh!
Covered in blood. Yeah,
it was confusing.
It was cathartic, to say the least.
Yeah.
But you know, I owe it to John Allen because I had talked to him. I said, "Hey, look, I want to learn how to be a professional wrestler. I want to, start in this business. I'm not getting an opportunity the way I would like to." And I had talked to Ken Taylor about it. I had talked to Ken about the school and everything. But Ken Taylor was, he's he was a good promoter for what he does.
Yeah.
One thing I try not to do is I try not to talk bad about anybody. I don't want to give dirt to anybody, but I will, because I don't want that karma to happen to me.
Right.
But Ken just didn't seem like he was more into it for the financial means and not so much for the educational means. And he was going to have his guy teach. And at the time, I don't know, I was lazy, I guess. At the time, I didn't know how to respect it, the business and everything like that. But the guy that was teaching, Jeremy Young, was it Jeremy Young? I want to say it was Jeremy Young, was teaching at the time. And I just didn't like the way he worked, his mantra about wrestling. So, and I came to one of his classes and I saw him teaching. Had it been Kit Carson or Chris Germany, I would have been there all day long. I wouldn't have no problem with that. But
yeah,
those two guys, they just stopped, and Chris Germany taken over, and was it Chris Germany? Yeah, not Chris Germany. It was Jeremy Young had taken over, and I couldn't go to that school. So I started going to, on Friday nights, I started going to Texas Championship Wrestling. So a couple hours before the actual wrestling show, I got to have my classes, and there was a couple guys in there that were teaching me. John Allen would be in there to teach me. BJ Turner was in there to train me a little bit. A guy and a guy by the name of Pitbull Kevin Dark was teaching me at that point, especially Kevin Dark. And Kevin Dark is not many people know about him, but if you do know about Kevin, he was probably he was an all pro. I wouldn't say he was an all pro, but he was a very good football player, and in his high school years, and I think part of his college years, and then he started doing. I think he was a Pro Bowl rider clown for a long time, and he's one of those calm, cool, and very nice guys, and but but when you put him in the ring, ring the bell, he's a bloodthirsty animal. I mean, that's just the way that guy was. He
Right.
just looked like he would just tear you apart. He just he would never go out of his way to hurt me, but he always made sure that I understood,
Right.
what we do in the business.
Yeah.
Not long after that, John Allen, it was probably a few months into the school when I found out John Allen was selling his part of the company to Knight Davis. And I had the option to train with Knight Davis at his school in Denton. They were moving the company into Denton. Or John could take me over to go visit his trainer, and I could train with him. His trainer was Killer Tim Brooks. I said, okay. So I had my options at that point, but I was like, why would I need options? I'm just going to do both.
Yeah.
So I'm working a full-time job, putting in 60 hours a week.
Whew.
Driving all over Fort Worth as a vendor, and then I turn around, go back to the warehouse, clock out, drive all the way to Waxahachie, or drive all the way to Denton, drive all the way back to. I was living in Northwestern Hills at the time, and I'm driving, which is, if nobody knows where I live, then it's kind of like it's an hour drive no matter what, each way, and it's two opposite ways. You either go north to Denton or I go south to Waxahachie, and there were times when I just, after driving so much, you just forget your own way. You don't even know where you're going anymore. And I got to the point to where not only could I drive with my eyes closed, but I just knew where to go. And I would go train at Killers. I would go train it with Kevin Dark. And then one day I'm having an early lunch break, early day off from my vendor job.
Yeah.
And I run into a girl by the name of Claudia, Jackie, who was Angel of Mercy Jackie, who was a female wrestler at the time for PCW. She was married to a wrestler at one point, and at the time she was pregnant with her first child, and I said, or second child, excuse me, and I said, hey, I happened to run into her at the restaurant she was working at one day, and we struck up a conversation. It's like, hey, I've been doing this training thing for about a year and a half or so. I was like, is there any place that I can go get a start at? Well, she told me that PCW was doing in Arlington, which was, I don't know if you know about what PCW was. PCW was an organization that at one time was run by the Bussy family. They had their own TV show called The Bussy Bunch. They had a wrestling TV show on My 27 for years running, and I came in right around the end of their contract with the UPN My 27 channel that they were on, and so I never got to be on the television statewide television that they had, but
barely missed it.
Barely missed it. Just got in there day late and a dollar short. You know how it is. So I get there, and I had talked to Jackie, and Jackie had got me in touch with Terry Stevens, who was a head referee over PCW at that point. And, Terry had given me a call. I said, hey, man, you go there and talk to a man by the name. We call him Goo. Goo? Is it? Yeah, that's his name, Goo. All right, fine. I'll go talk to Goo. I don't know who this Goo guy is. And I'm thinking Goo is some short guy just by the name. I'm thinking, no, Goo is this, 6-foot, red-headed, just built like a steamroller.
How do you get the name Goo?
I don't know either. I don't know either. And but he used to be the tag partner for a guy by the name of Hellraiser Hark. And they were the Hellraisers, and they were, they were big then. And I started working as a referee because they didn't. At first, I was going to be a manager or a ring announcer or something like that. And I was like, well, I brought my referee gear in case you needed me. He's like, oh, we don't have a referee tonight. That's good. Why don't you get in there and try that out? I was like, okay, fine. I wanted to be a wrestler, man. I wanted to be a wrestler. I've always wanted to be a wrestler, but they were so many guys, and there was nobody to be a zebra. And so I took it upon myself at that point on a Friday night, knowing it was a student show, and I'm not getting paid for this. I was like, whatever. I'll pay my dues. I was the only referee the entire night.
Wow. You must have been tired then.
Oh man, it was shit. You want to talk about worn out? I was worn out and then some.
Yeah, I
I was worn,
bet.
I feel like I ran a marathon, but elated to say the least because I was finally doing something that I've always wanted to do, and I was happy, and
Right.
I was just having so much fun being a part of that, and then
Yeah.
kind of honing my craft on a Friday. Eventually, the Saturday show that was having TV, which I was not allowed to be in the locker room at the time.
Yeah.
One day, I just randomly showed up to the tape to a taping, and they had taped the show, and that's when they made the announcement that they're not going to be having TV anymore. And that's when you started to kind of see the guys that were on TV just kind of not take bookings anymore on Saturday nights there.
Right.
And it was right around that time when Richard Hill started taking over the booking for PCW at the time. And he was booking for both Friday and Saturday nights. And, or not Friday and Saturday nights, but he booked for Friday and Saturday nights. And then he took some time off to just do Saturday to focus on that.
Yeah.
I think it had something to do with work or whatever. And Goo had taken over as the Friday night booker, at the time. So
Okay.
Goo had given me a whole bunch of opportunity to just work wrestling, and nobody wanted to be a referee, so it was just me. It was just me every Friday night. And then I got an opportunity to go work another show on a Sunday, or on a set. Was it on Sunday? On a Friday and a Sunday, usually, with David Fuller, who had a show out in Haltom City at the time. And so I was doing on Friday nights. I would leave work and I'd be at Fuller's by 4:00 to start the show by 5, finish the show by 7, drive all the way to Arlington, start the show by 8, leave there by 10:30 to come back home, get up and go to work and do it all over again. And
Jeez.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, it had been really fun. It was really fun back then.
You definitely have to have a love for it to be able to, take all of that time out to do it. I mean, there has to be a passion and a love for this business to be able to even justify it in your own mind,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love wrestling.
Right.
Wrestling has done as much as I've given to wrestling. It has given me back in a different form.
Yeah.
It's given me the ability to actually socialize a lot better. Like, I would not be having this conversation with you right now if I was the same guy when I first started at all.
Really?
I was so afraid of everything.
Yeah.
I was afraid of myself. I was afraid of hurting people. I wasn't afraid of getting hurt, but I was afraid of hurting people. And that was one thing I had to get over. And being around the boys with all those with a lot of guys that had egos, but in all rights, you back then you used to talk about how that guy has a big ego, whatever. Well, there's a reason why you have it. It's because we care enough about this business in order for us to keep going. So,
right.
There are certain things that we appreciate about it. We have this vision, and sometimes our visions don't mesh well with other people, and it doesn't make sense. But it's just a matter of communication when it comes right down to it. That was ultimately when I found out that was the hardest thing, is people didn't know how to communicate back then.
Yeah.
But the show, I'll never regret working with. I'll never regret working both those nights, even through the transitions of Friday nights when Steve DeMarco took over as booker after Richard had decided to, kind of take a step back for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And when Steve DeMarco took over, oh man, that just opened the floodgates for some more fun, and we got some more talent in, and we got some new guys that came in. And we had, I got the opportunity because of PCW. I got the opportunity to work with bigger names like Abyss and Sabu.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I got to work with. There's another person I got to work with besides, everybody else. Mike Fox, Action Jackson, he's a namesake from Texas. Anywhere,
yeah.
I got to work with, and I used to watch AJ over at NWA Southwest,
yeah,
and then to fast forward, and be able to work at MPX not long after that. A little ways after that, when I got to meet Dexter Hardaway, who worked at NWA Southwest back then too. And I used to watch him in tag matches, getting the tar beat out of him by Bobby Too Bad. I mean, it was just the greatest thing I ever seen. And but anyway, sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent like that. I do that sometimes.
No, that's totally fine. You've brought up a few names though on here, and that I wanted to talk about and everything. And one of them is Dexter Hardaway. Actually, so I've had him on the show as well and everything, and he recently was inducted into the WFC Hall of Fame. And you know, he has a very storied career. He's done a lot in wrestling. But the one of the very first things, so whenever I started doing my research for this, did you know the very first video that pops up whenever you Google you is when Dexter tried to pants you?
Yeah.
So whose idea was to use that as part of the match?
That was strictly all Dexter, all ad lib, all ad lib. Yeah, he totally did that all ad lib, and yeah, that was all him. That was and he basically said, "Hey, you know, I might just do that." You know, jokingly. You know, at first, like, "Yeah, right. Yeah, you're not gonna do it." He totally did it. He totally did it.
He's a fun guy. You know, when I had him on here, though, we ended up talking about baseball for probably over half of the whole episode.
He's a huge baseball nut. I mean, huge baseball nut.
Man, he goes to all the games and stuff too. I mean, like, I think during baseball season, that's all you see on like his Facebook is just you know, him going to the games.
Yeah, you know what? He actually had given me and this girl that I was dating at the time some tickets to go watch the Ranger game. He had come across some extra tickets, and
that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool too because we had never been to the new ballpark, and got to go run around the ballpark a little bit and get to shoot the breeze with him and talk baseball with him for a little bit.
Yeah,
but it was kind of, for me, it's kind of surreal because here I am. I remember watching him as a 16, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah,
and he's in the ring, you
right.
know, and he was one of the guys I used to, I really liked watching live, you know,
right.
He was one of probably the first people I saw wrestling live in what was a live wrestling event.
Yeah.
I hadn't been to a live wrestling event before going into NWA Southwest.
Yeah.
And that was the watching. So it was kind of, to me, it was kind of surreal because I got to be with the guy that I used to cheer for. He was the underdog, you know, for most of the matches he ever did. When he, you know, went up against he once did a match against Brett Bones one time, and he was, you know, the underdog going in, and he won the match, and it was just like that place erupted whenever he won, and he wasn't supposed to. It didn't seem like he was supposed to win that match.
Yeah,
everybody in the arena thought he was going to lose. It's just one of the greatest things. Hey, but you want to talk about telling a story? That guy can tell you some stories about some wrestling and baseball, but he loves catching baseball. You know that.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, half of the stuff he posted was, "Here's another ball that I caught," you know. So, but
loves cats too. Loves cats.
Yes.
He's a cat guy.
He told me he wanted to do an episode with Justin Lee on here where they talk about cats. So I haven't set that one up yet. You know, I've actually had Justin on here 3 times, and one of it was a 2-part episode because we talked for almost 3 hours.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, but we was talking about Batman. So, you know, I mean, that's a lengthy subject.
That's a good subject.
Right. Yeah. That's a very lengthy subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had, Angel Camacho was on here, and whenever he found out about that, he was booing that we were talking about Batman. So, you know, staying true to heel character, I guess.
Of course he would. Of course he would. I love Angel. He's a great dude.
Oh yeah.
Him and his family, they're all just good people, and you know, just been watching this every time he comes to the show. It's always good to see him.
Yeah.
I don't like him in the ring. You know, I don't care for him in the ring. He's mean. He's ugly, but it's like a switch for him. You know,
it is. It's very much so a switch.
It's a switch. It's just like Hulk Hogan versus Rocky is what it is. Thunder Lips. It's the Thunder Lips character guy. Yeah. What was all that craziness back there? That's the name of the game. You know, that's Angel. That's just Angel Camacho for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the very first time I was backstage with him, he's the one. I walked back there, and all of a sudden I hear him talking about something. They're talking about Disney movies. I'm like, it was such a surreal moment. I'm like, I'm back here backstage talking with Jace Osei and Angel Camacho about Disney movies.
The level of conversations that happens in the back of wrestling shows will never cease to amaze me.
Yeah.
And upon the level where I can physically walk up to a conversation and realize that this is way too intelligent for me to be around, and I will walk away.
Yeah.
Because when people seem to sound like they know what they're talking about, and I have like a very small, minute idea of what they're talking about with a very little idolized opinion, which means absolutely nothing to this conversation and it brings nothing toward it, I'm just going to go find somebody else to talk to, because that's just what I do. I don't want to. One thing I don't like is stupid, and that would have been the moment that I would look completely unintelligent whatsoever.
Yeah. It's just funny because then, you have other people that walk up and they're like, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, well, this is my favorite movie, and that was, like I said, it was my first time backstage because, I've been working with a local company here doing backstage correspondent. And the conversations, like you said, it just kind of blows you away what you come across.
The only thing that I usually contribute a lot of times to conversations is usually whenever things in my life are going pretty well and I can actually sit down and I can focus on certain things, because I have ADD brain. I get things so quickly.
I got you.
And that's why a lot of times I go over the matches quite a bit with the guys, because I want to know what's going to happen. And a lot of times when we're doing things, and I don't want to take away from their match or take all the heat away from them.
Right.
But oftentimes enough, I'm playing into the character of being an official, and it can do that. And I get and all due respect to the people that come to watch our shows, and then they start chanting my name for standing up for myself or something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel bad because, I don't want to take the heat away from the boys, because that's the important story that they need to take. And I'm not trying to do that whatsoever. So if there's any misunderstanding with that, I need to let that out right now. But
yeah.
I'm always about making sure the boys look good. So,
there's a name that comes to mind whenever you say that. And there were tons of good matches that happened with him in there. And he did the very same thing. And that's Earl Hebner. He was very well known for being the guy that you didn't mess with when you were in the ring. He fought back. And so, I don't feel that takes away from the story as much as it is. You're just asserting your authority because you are the authority in the ring at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's all because of Frankie Fisher. That's his fault. That how this whole thing started.
Yeah.
And it's really, let me just get to the point to how I got the MPS. Okay, so Frankie Fisher was actually a part of PCW at one time, and he was going through training and everything else there, and was going through school, and he had actually been a fan at that show for the longest time, and he finally started wrestling.
Okay.
And he had the whole schoolboy gimmick. He actually came back to the Saved by the Bell tune and came out wearing a backpack. Yeah, because he was in school.
Yeah.
And then finally towards the end of where it got to where PCW was about to shut down, he finally graduated high school and went to college. And so he started playing he started playing a whole different song with him whenever he would come out.
Yeah.
Let's see. It would be like him versus Aaron Eagle and his brother Cub or something like that, and he'd have a tag team partner like, I don't know, maybe Karrion or Kane or maybe Stephen Murphy, somebody.
Yeah.
And Frankie was always the guy that would just say the most silliest, most sarcastic and just off cuff jackass types of things to say.
Yeah.
That it just got progressively worse as he became more and more of an adult. And he's just being himself. That's just the thing about Frankie. He was just extending upon that personality that he is. He's a really nice guy. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
I've got nothing bad to ever say about him. He helps everybody he can, but he's a grown man. He takes care of his own. He's taken care of himself since he was 17, basically.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So he
had to grow up quick.
Yeah, he grew up pretty quick, but
Yeah.
he's also just a big kid at heart at the same time, and he loves wrestling and he loved where he was at. And eventually, when he started this whole jackass gimmick, it started because I'm the guy in there, and I'm so easy to pick on. Apparently,
Yeah.
I'm such the target by him.
Yeah.
I just took it for the longest time, and finally, somewhere in me, like for shoot, really just cracked, and he's like, you know what, you were a terrible referee, and then I just yelled back, and well, you're just a total jackass, and then the crowd is like, whoa. I was legitimately hot angered at him at that point. Legitimately hot angered. I wasn't angry to the point that I was gonna fight the guy, but I was angry because it's like, I'm tired of this. You're making me look like an asshole the entire time I'm out here. I'm like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
And I have been, from the places I've been, the things that I've seen, that's just, I don't take that much anymore. I used to when I was younger, but like, no, I just can't anymore. I'm too grown for that. And finally I started standing up for myself, and it became a thing of its own. It just became a thing of its own one day.
Yeah.
And it was, at some point he and I had talked about where, eventually I would finally get my comeuppance with him.
Yes.
And that's whenever we had we had another referee come in and try to he would hire his own referee that knew how to count, knew how to take care of the things, which in the form of Matthew Fisher, I think at that point at the first, and then here I am, I come out and I stop him. And stop a 3 count that he was supposed to, because he was cheating to win. He was cheating to win, so I couldn't stand for that. I'm not the kind of referee. I'm senior rep. I can't allow that to happen. No, my watch, not a Purple Rain. So I run out there and I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. So he goes count 3. I stop 3 count, pull him up, and I tell him, he pushes me. I said, you don't push me. So I pushed him back. He went to give me something, gave him a kick, stunned him right in the middle of the ring. And I was like, that's when everything changed for me. I just became that guy, and I became that Earl Hebner-like character. And
is that where you get the Iron Referee moniker from?
I get the Iron Referee. No, the Iron Referee moniker was basically because when I started at PCW, like I said, I was doing the show by myself.
Gotcha.
I did that for a year, roughly about a year or so by myself. At some point, about 3 or 4 months into it, I was doing not only the whole Friday night show by myself, I was doing the Friday night and the Saturday night show all by myself.
Oh, wow.
So, I was just doing the whole show by myself consistently. And it was through the summer months, into the winter, and then they finally get another referee for a little bit. Then he quit, and then I'd keep going.
So every night was kind of like an Iron Man match for you then?
For me, it was, yes.
Yeah.
For me it was, and I've consistently known for like working entire wrestling shows for all by myself, and to me that's like working an Iron Man match, but you're doing basically, if you're there for 3 hours, you're doing 3 hours worth of matches and everything in between.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, I have to remember what these guys are doing in their match, and I got to remember call outs, finishes, things, spots that they're going to do, and things like that. And it's just, you want to make the show better and everything else like that. But essentially, that's what I had to do. I had to prepare. At that point, I was preparing myself for, hopefully eventually this will change, and maybe I can stop doing this and get some other guys in here so maybe I can start wrestling while I'm still young.
Yeah.
20 years later, here I am still wearing the stripes. And, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I've submitted my legacy this way.
Yes.
I had the opportunity at the end of Kirby's run at MPX, when he decided that he was going to sell MPX, that he was going to, that he was leaving. And I had begged Kirby for years. I had begged Kirby, let me have one hardcore match with you, please. Let me have a hardcore match with you. Well, I got a match with him, but it was in a 6-man tag. And thank God it was in a 6-man tag, because I blew up so fast in that match. I was so blown. I'm out of shape anyway. Everybody, and I'm not. I hope that nobody notices that, but I don't know if you notice or not. But if you look at me, I know I have the body of a Greek god. Really, I do. But no, I don't. No, I look like a busted can of biscuits sometimes. But no, for real, I just wanted to go out there and have a match. And in my first match in about 18 years, that's when I was in the 6-man tag with a 16 and 17-year-old rookie, another vet that I knew from PCW, Matthew Palmer, and then MPX guys are all on the other side of the ring in the form of Schaefer, Red Chambers, and of course Stephen Kirby. And I came out there and I did my part. They did their part, I was just so thrilled to have been a part of that and been able to do that. And I haven't been able to do anything like that since. But it's been for me. That was a big thing for me. And being at MPX, as long as I have been, even after I had a falling out when I first met Stephen Kirby, when he first started the whole business, the whole thing. That's a story by itself too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Back in 2010, Stephen Kirby. It was after PCW had just basically fell. They fell. I wasn't even allowed to work the last show in PCW in 2000, the last consecutive show for PCW in 2009 because of a misunderstanding that I had with Richard at the time. And anyway, so I had an opportunity through Christopher Hayden, Carrying Arcane, to come work another show with them, and I didn't know anybody else where they were working because nobody was around at the time except for maybe Victory Crown Championship Wrestling at that time. I was working with Derek Abrams, and then before they had Metwell Pro, that's all that good. Yeah, and which I really enjoyed working that show. That was something I look forward to at least once a month. And then of course Kirby was at the time was working with Matthew Fisher, a bunch of other guys that were on the wrestling show. They were all his friends. They all started literally in their backyard and doing birthday parties after that, and doing wrestling matches that at that time were just not good. And I had stated it, and it hurt Kirby's feelings because all he really wanted was to meet somebody that could show him the way to do this. Yeah. And I was very, I could hear my trainers coming out my mouth. The guys that taught me to respect the business, things that they taught me were coming out of my mouth. Yeah. So it was never like, I never really wanted to hurt. I was never trying to intentionally hurt his feelings, but I was trying to make him and I knew he had respect for what we were doing. Yeah. But the way I conveyed it at the time, and I was in a very dark place in my life at that point. And I had come across as I did come across as an asshole. I really did, and to be honest with you. And I was like, look, guys, you guys need to get trained by some legitimate people because y'all got everything going for you. You have the production stuff, you have the vignettes, the mic skills, you'll have all this character stuff, but you can't back it up with your wrestling skills whatsoever. Yeah. It took Christopher Hayden and Carrying Arcane to come in and work with the guys, and then Matthew Palmer coming in to work with the guys sometimes, and a couple other guys would come in rotation. Lance Hoyt and everybody else would come in and help on rotation to train the guys that are working at the show, and then make it bigger. So Kirby then started having a wrestling school and a wrestling show that he would show once every other month or so, and then they went twice a month. Well, it was still at the old Metroplex gym, and because of that misunderstanding that I had with Kirby at that time. I think that and something that happened at his house at an after show party that was going on. Another misunderstanding that something had happened. Yeah, because I don't intend to disrespect anybody, but I'm the type of person that I say how I feel without some regard sometimes, because it's like I don't want anybody to understand it that I don't want anybody to take me the wrong way, but I have a viewpoint and how I feel, and most of the stuff that the way I see it is very emotional to me because I respect this business so much. Yeah, I'm sorry for rambling so much, but I'm just
you're good, man. No, that's totally fine. I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk and tell stories and everything. So yeah, I'm just letting you go. So this is one I have an actual testimonial for myself. I've used this company to get a custom gift made for my wife. If you're looking for a handmade custom gift or something that's laser engraved or just something that's one of a kind that says, hey, I care, then go to 3S Productions. They even make military and sports themes gifts as well. It is a veteran-owned and operated family business. Hit them up on their Instagram page, and that's at 3S Productions. I will have a link to them in my show notes. When it comes to laser engraving or any type of woodworking, go to 3S Productions with a Z. And like I said, I'll have a link to them in my show notes. So,
let's see.
At what point was it that you decided, you know what, I am going to stick with the ref side of this?
I went to a training session at off the wall training session one time, and ECW, and I was kind of messing around the ring a little bit, and somebody had gotten into a conversation with me about, the way I wrestle and everything like that, and it just kind of really, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, and so, and then on top of that, I had some outside influences at the time that were just not very supportive of me at the time to do this wrestling stuff. And in the form of my father, he wasn't at the time. He wasn't very supportive about, to me, he wasn't very supportive as far as, me doing anything with wrestling, because he thought it was a big waste of my time.
Yeah,
I should have been spending more. I probably should have spent the $2,000 gone to Atlanta and gone into school, then time at the power plant.
Yeah,
all this stuff. And it was just like, I got to start somewhere, and this is the best thing I know how to do.
Right.
Long and the short of that is I kept being a referee because, one, I have a bad habit of having like I said, I'm even when I was in the peak of my refereeing career, I was probably about $185, maybe about 220, something like that. Anywhere from $185 to 220, depending on the year.
Yeah.
But I was working out quite a bit more then. I was a lot skinnier then than I am now. But I got to the point where nobody would want me to be anywhere else, but I was always getting phone calls. Hey man, I got this show that I'm starting in December. Do you want to be there? Can you be there? Like, yeah, I can be there. And I show up, I'm the only guy there, and it's just like, okay. And then sometimes I'd show up, and then the promoter would ask me after I'd done a couple of matches, can you come back and do this again? I'm like, yeah, just call me, let me know. A lot of times sometimes I get a call back, sometimes I wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's one particular veteran that I went to go work a show for one time, and it was booked by another guy, but he was the owner of that show, who was a known veteran in the area. And I worked one show for him, and I asked him if he wanted me to ever come back, just let me know. Never got a call back from me. Never got a call back. Or if he would try to book me, and he would. So it's just like,
Yeah.
And then there was those guys that you go and work a whole show by yourself, and then turn right around, and that guy wouldn't pay you at the end of the day after you've been there the entire time and done all the matches. I'm sorry, man, didn't make enough at the gate. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
You're gonna have 2 less tires by the time I get outside the parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but I mean,
oh no, I get it. Yeah, I mean, you spent money to get there, so I mean, you gotta make money too. So no, I totally get that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of,
for the record, I never hurt anybody's car or anything.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. So we're gonna kind of switch things up here a little bit. Do you have any hobbies?
Do I have any hobbies? Wrestling is my hobby. It's my passion. It is everything that I do. I love playing Call of Duty, and I love playing video games.
Okay.
I tend to go for long walks on the beach and having candlelight dinners on the outside of Italy sometimes. I go on flights with Tony Snow out to Mexico a lot, and what his I mean let me tell you about those tortillas. When he says that when his grandmother makes some good tortillas, his abuelita makes some tortillas, he ain't joking. Those aren't even the best ones that she makes. I'll tell you that right now. those are not even the best ones that she makes. The best ones she makes, she saves just for the certain people. And man, was I fortunate. My real hobbies, I tend to, like I said, I do play video games. I'm a video gamer, and that's been my my hobby. I'm a mechanic by trade, so I like to tinker around with cars and bikes and things like that. Another hobby, I like to go. I started going fishing not long ago. Every once in a while, I just kind of do
That's
catch and throw.
Yeah,
I love anything that involves just peaceful activities that I can just kind of relax, and I'm not around a lot of people that are kind of noisy because I like to get away from all the noise a lot. Just the way my mind is, I need to just center myself.
Yeah. Well, and fishing is a good way to do that too. I mean, I have days where, like, I'd go fishing and I'd barely get a bite, and it was still one of the best days I'd had because it was just quiet, just be in the water,
Yeah, I'm actually discovering new things because I quit drinking last year, and that's been a huge change in my life where I've been because I'll keep my personal life short. I was an addict for a long time. I was an alcoholic for a long time, and I just kind of kept it to myself. Everybody knew that I drank beer, but they didn't know how much I drank, and I just unfortunately for me, it's gotten me in some trouble. And because of that, I had to quit. And now my only thing that I do is try to find anything that doesn't involve any activities that have to do with that. I mean, I can go places, I can go do things that everybody else can do. I just got to be careful about, the type of people that I'm around and the type of activities that I'm around based on that.
Yeah.
So nowadays, what I do is like I said, I'll go to movies and do the simple things. I like to shop. I like to go shopping and not buy nothing. That's what I like to do. I like going places to eat that I have never eaten at before, just to say that I've eaten there.
That's cool.
Try their star dish. I'm a hamburger guy, so I'm on this quest for the best burgers in Fort Worth and Dallas. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay. What's your best one that you've come across so far?
The best one that I've come across so far was Winfield's out of Oak Cliff.
Okay.
Yeah. That's this place is smaller probably than your garage and cut in half. And then it has bars in the windows. You can call your order in, and an hour later it'll be ready, but you better be there because it'll be given away to somebody. It is one of those rare places. Hole in the wall. It literally looks like an old fashioned jail cell, but man, I tell you what, the burgers that come out that joint. Oh man.
Yeah.
Worth the drive.
You said this is where now?
I want to say it's Winfield's. I think it's in Dallas. It's like Oak Cliff.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say it's like Oak Cliff, or like Duncanville, DeSoto, something like that. It's over there in that area somewhere.
I'm very much a hamburger guy myself. I love finding a good cheeseburger, and my favorite one, though, we'll kind of go on food here for a minute because I like my food and everything, and I like a nice bacon cheeseburger with a fried egg on top.
Hey,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. The protein deluxe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that's the best way to have it. My kids even know, what Dad's favorite cheeseburger is that one. So but yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. That's another hobby I've done. I've started like in the summer. This past summer, I was doing TikToks, and I'll find something that I really like, and I'll just kind of create my own little music video or something like that. Not that I'm not a good video maker, content maker, or anything like that, but something to do.
Yeah. Well, I duetted you today on one of those. So.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. From
whose car are we going to take?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's such a great movie too. So.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people.
Whose car are we going to take?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the best lines in the entire movie.
It is.
That's what I'm calling. That's your best friend. That is your best friend.
Yeah.
Whose car are we going to take?
No questions. Let's just do it.
No questions.
Yeah.
Let's just, whose car are we going to take? That's the only question I got.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So you're a movie guy, you said.
Yes.
Is there any that you've seen that, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie without any ado,
Uh-huh.
would be Rocky.
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 Okay.
Yeah, Rocky is my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
Man, and it's because it's a love story.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only just a love story for a man that loves what he's doing, but it's a love story for the man that's doing what he's doing, has gone through a lot of different heartaches and everything else. You can just see it. You know, the man's broken. The man is broken, but he finally got an opportunity to do the one thing that he never thought he would ever be able to do. And he's got it, and he's worried that it's all going to crash, you know, before it even starts. So that was, that's Rocky 1, 2, and 3, probably my favorite movies by far.
I got you. You can't go wrong with Stallone.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Anything he does, it's just gold.
Anything.
Anything.
I remember there's a movie, I don't remember what it was called, but it's one that he did with Dolly Parton, to where she was trying to make him. Is it Rhinestone? Yeah.
Rhinestone.
Yeah. And trying to make him a country music singer. That movie was great. But, you know, the ones that we watch the most in our house is probably the Rambo movies. And I've recently, my son watched the first 2 of them with me and my wife, and he likes them. In fact, my wife likes them so much that was like a date night with that last Rambo movie that came out. You know, we went to Longhorns, and then we went and saw Rambo in theaters. So
I didn't understand that yet. I still haven't really quite figured that one out yet.
The last one,
I think. Yeah, the last one, it didn't seem like it was. I don't think still. I don't know. I don't know. I love the Rambo series.
Yeah,
I love the original First Blood was probably the best one.
100%.
But to say that, and to see his trend, to see him progress all the way up until probably that one when he was in Burma, where he's back at the ranch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that one just yet. I liked it, but I don't feel like it was kind of this. It just didn't feel the same. It just didn't feel like. I get it. I get it. Military, you're supposed to protect against people that are foreign and domestic. And that makes sense to me, but I don't know. I really feel like that it didn't really hit in a spot for me that really said something about, you know what? I mean, maybe this is time for. It's time for all this to come to an end, you know.
But, I mean, they kind of led it to that, to where, you know, it could be the end. You know, I mean, they kind of just leave it open. You don't know if he survived or not, even there at the end.
Yeah.
So sorry if anybody who hasn't seen it. Spoilers. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been out for a few years, since 2019, I believe it was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would finally make a point to carry on that story, but that story really needs to end in one way or another. I think the Creed series taken off after Rocky, that really solidified a new franchise for him, even after the fact that he's gone, so that Hollywood can take over. He's done his part with all that, and it was great storytelling. The Creed storytelling is just as good, if not better. A lot of different elements that went into those stories. I thought they were really good. A lot of dynamic things, like his wife being a singer and her having hearing problems, all that stuff.
Yeah,
all that was just gold.
Yeah,
gold.
Yeah.
I always liked it whenever when he brought back in the Rocky Balboa film, that he brought back original characters that he had in the first film.
Right.
That, you know, and that really said something. It's like, oh, it's coming from circle.
Yeah.
And then they see that the credits go up, and then you hear that violin play, and like, oh.
Oh man, yeah. There's, like I said, Stallone movies, you can't go wrong. I'm even a big fan of the Expendables movies that he's done. You know, as you know, they're just a bunch of explosions, but it's still fun.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I like how he takes actual moments in people's. Like, he takes you on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
In a sense, to where it's like, okay, he draws you in with the characteristics of these people. So that's what draws you into his movies.
Right.
You figure out who they are, and you learn about them as you go. And to see like these people that he's involved with, either if anything happens to any of them, the way that, like, even the opening scene, the cliffhanger is that way. Like, I cannot tell you, I cried for him when his friend's wife fell off the cliff. And then,
Yeah.
you know what bothered me? What bothered me is the man's wife just fell out of his hands, and he's just dead. Faced.
Yep.
And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
What? Please tell me that this was something that, you know, you wanted to happen. You know, like you're having an affair with someone's wife or something like that, and that's what's going on. And so it was kind of like a thing, like you rigged the carabiner to fault on this whole thing. Like, I wanted this to be some sort of factual, like there's understory being told here that we never heard. Never heard it. I kind of feel like it was there, but it's not.
Right.
But you know, another hobby that I do like to go and do is usually I used to go to metal concerts. I'm very good friends with I was very good. I was very good associates. I'll say that much. But we're friends at one time with a guy by the name of Jay Wilson, who is a drummer for a band at one time known in the Dallas Fort Worth metal scene as Bloodstained Carpet. And now that he was at one time drumming for a band called Far Beyond Drunk, who was a Pantera tribute band. And they're really, really good. Well, I got to where I was starting to watch them play and everything else. And of course, Karrion Arcane, who is a wrestler, he's also a guitar player, and he plays Slayer and Metallica. And all kinds. He loves playing stuff like that, and all kinds of death metal and things like that. Well, he had told me he was going to this concert. And it was the first time I had ever seen In This Moment live at the Boiler Room.
That would be cool to see.
It was at the Boiler Room in Dallas.
Oh, okay.
And this was before the first album came out. They were doing all the, she was, and the lead singer was just growling away. It was, you would talk about the most genty and just deep, dark, growling things. I'd never heard a woman sound like that before. But this little bitty woman, this like maybe 5'3", 5'7", somewhere under. She's shorter than me. Yeah, little bitty little thing wearing a corset, just growling and just, oh my god, the lowest guttural like sounding voice I had ever heard. Makes everybody just go the same. It would put the guy. Whatever that guy's name who's always screaming out loud at his concerts, I forget, for something Vicious. I don't know
what was that.
And some guy named Vicious, something like that. Anyway, he's a guy that's a metal singer, and he's known for screaming out loud the way he does at his concerts without his mic. And,
are you talking about the Russian band that Slaughter to Prevail?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, Ivan. Is it? I want to say it's like Ivan Terrible or something like that.
Ivan Terrible. That's it. It's Ivan Terrible. He was like, like he was singing lower than him, and just guttural. And I was just like, oh my god. And she held this like low note for the longest time through like
Alex Terrible.
Alex Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the lead singer, who's the lead singer for In This Moment, she was holding this guttural like scream growl for the longest time through the huge breakdown. It had to have been like a whole minute, and she just kept going and going. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is the most brutal thing ever." I'm a huge fan. And then their album comes out, and she's been singing like normal, her normal voice. Like it sounds so pukey and whiny. I just can't do it. I gave up on her at that point. It's like, shut up. Shut up.
What about Arch Enemy? Do you like Arch Enemy?
I love Arch Enemy. You know what? When back in 2005 when they came out, and OTEP had come out with like songs that were against Bush at that time. I totally agreed with what they were saying. Yeah, and it just made a lot of sense about how where we were as a country at that point. The metal scene pretty much changed for me because, well, of course, we all grew up. I'm from Texas. Yeah, born and raised in Waco. Moved to Fort Worth at a relatively young age. Yeah, stayed in Fort Worth scene Fort Worth and Dallas scene for the longest time. I know who Pantera is. It's hard not to know who they are around here.
Yep.
I was heartbroken back in 2004 when I found out about what happened to
Dimebag.
when I found Dimebag.
Yep.
Heartbroken to say the least. And then
Yep.
I was at Vinnie Paul's. I went to Vinnie Paul's memorials celebration of life over at the event in Dallas.
Okay.
And I remember Chris Jericho was there. He actually told a whole story about Vinnie Paul and
That's
everything
cool.
else too. It was the coolest thing. And
Yeah.
I ran into a lot of people that I knew from wrestling.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I knew from the metal scene from the shows
Right.
that I've been to.
Yeah.
And I mean that's one thing that I can always say, that I always have that metal scene that I can go and attend to. Not long ago, I'm also a huge, not just metal, but punk rock, country.
Okay.
I love music. I love music in general, but metal I think is always going to be that forefront for me.
I get that.
My favorite metal band of all time is going to be Typo Negative. That's one thing that me and Chris both share. That's our favorite band.
Yeah.
And then I got to see Typo Negative 4 times. One of those times was with Celtic Frost, and I'll never forget that night. Never.
Really?
Forget. Yeah, Celtic Frost was just awesome.
Do they even make music? They don't make music anymore, do they?
No, they did an album, they went on tour, and they toured for a little while, and then I guess, I don't know, the band members had a falling out again.
That happens.
And then Tryptophan started, and after Tryptophan, it was I forget what the name of the band, Trypticon, I think is what they turned it into.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Huh.
But yeah. And then of course I saw Charred Walls of the Damned, which is, Ripper Jones.
Yeah.
From former Priest guy, after Ralph Halford had taken a hiatus for a little bit.
Right.
Got to see, there's a band called Brand New Sin. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Saw them with them, but saw Hatebreed with them.
I like Hatebreed. I've always been a big fan of them.
Let's see. And another thing too, it's kind of funny too. My circle is always incomplete, but I always run into people that I know from something, right?
Yeah.
I'll start dating some girl. I started dating some girl, and her name was, I won't even mention her name, but I started dating this girl, and her and her sister both knew the guys from Combi Christ, who were the guys that used to come and play at PCW shows all the time as an intermission deal, which is the weirdest thing.
That's cool.
Rivet Head and Combi Christ both used to come to PCW and play shows there. It's the craziest thing.
Huh. So going back to one of the bands you said, Hatebreed. Do you know how I found them?
Yeah.
The Punisher movie that came out in 2004, was it? The one that had John Travolta in it?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and that song, what was it called? Bound to Violence was the
Violence.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I like the way this sounds. This is so cool. And my buddy who had the soundtrack, that was like his least favorite song on there. He's like, I don't know how you listen to this, And I was like, this is some good stuff. I mean, obviously I found the song Broken and all that stuff on there as well. But, yeah, that's where I found Hatebreed. And ever since then, I have been a pretty big fan of them. They have such uplifting lyrics in what they're saying, but it's so violent too.
Yeah. The music is just like, I'm going to punch you in your face.
Exactly.
I'm going to give you I'm going to be so positive about it when I do it.
Exactly.
I'm going to punch you in your face, but I'm going to pick you back up whenever. I'm going to have a smile on my face when I do it. I'm going to be like, okay, let's try this again.
Yeah.
So I mean, I totally agree. That's back then, when like I said, I think at that time period around 2000, anywhere between 2000 and 2008, I think that's when some of the best music, not even in my generation, had come out.
Yeah, and
some of the best times in wrestling, in my opinion, had really kind of given us the way to where we're at right now, and it's allowed a lot of people to become fans and allow the new generation to come and see what wrestling really is. It's no longer the guys that go in there and grab a headlock they work a headlock for 5 minutes and then finally turn it into like a roll up, as a finish after doing everything.
Yeah,
and I think nowadays, and this is what I found. This is the thing that I've noticed about music. It's that it always comes back around full circle. Eventually, you're going
It
to find
does.
something that's going to really sit. That's there's a once in a lifetime like generational thing that happens. For me, it was for us at that time period. It was all the emo bands that were coming out at the time, and I really felt things at that time period when they were coming out. Metal bands that were coming out
Yeah.
at that time period were talking a lot of stuff, and they were just everything fit.
Yeah.
Everything like people like In Flames and um In Flames and OTEP, Alice in Chains that came out with a new album.
Yeah.
Um, Black Gives Away the Blue, which I think is one of the greatest albums I've ever heard in my entire life, to be honest with you, that they've ever produced. And it's without Lane Staley, which is another thing to say about that, because Lane Staley is probably one of the greatest singers that Alice in Chains ever had.
Yeah.
But that album in and of itself, even after Jerry Cantrell's solo stuff, it really spoke to me. It just everything about that album at that time was speaking to me really well. And but yeah, that I love music. I was in a rock band when I was in high school, and I still talk to the guys that I was in that band with to this day. We've all got families now and become teachers. I'm the referee guy that works on cars, and I was very fortunate to be able to meet people that were on the up and up, and they've become people. I refereed Keith Lee's first match at PCW.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
I got to do.
Yeah.
And I always knew he was special, that he was going to go somewhere, and I will never take credit for anything that he's done. He did it all on his own, his way. He's still doing great.
He is.
And of course I got to work with Athena and Palmer and of course Kirby and like people like Mike Fox and Claudia and Wally Darkman. That's another wrestler that had a character back in PCW that was really good. I mean, Chris Richter, who was, so many different characters and everything else. I could go on and on with all the people that, I really appreciate being in the ring with.
Yes.
And being in the ring with Aaron Eagle again, it just brings me back to a time when I really loved wrestling.
Right.
As part of my life, and I really wanted to be more than where I was at.
Yeah.
If I could have gone to TNA, I could have, and I never did.
Yeah.
Being able to work with Lance Hoyt and all those guys, and now being able to go and do all these other shows that Palmer has helped me get into, like working the Revolver show or working with Derek and Jason over at Matt War Pro, and working with Franco D'Angelo, all the guys that I've worked with in the past, I seem to always find them.
Yeah.
We always come back to each other. And then on top of that, we're always making sure that we're helping each other. We're in it for the show. We're in it for the story. We're in it to make money. We're in it for the good business. We're in it to help people get what they want when they come to our show. And it's important to me that I play that role. And it's important to me that everybody comes in and enjoys themselves. I'm not one to come out into the audience a lot and talk to people. And I'm not one to really kind of shake hands and kiss babies and all that. I'm very much the private person.
Yeah.
And I can't be, I have this thing I don't like. I hate to say it. I don't want to be like Brock Lesnar and say I don't like being around a whole lot of people. I do like being around people. I do like being around people, but I have this uncomfortability it's just I can't explain it. It's just nothing can say that. I like to decompress after a match sometimes and after a show sometimes, because I'm taking it in.
Yeah.
Because I go out there and I do what everybody else does. And the wrestlers, they put on a good show and everything else, but I'm in there to make sure that they look like they're actually performing as this is a competitive match. I play my role too.
Yeah.
And we're always going to be the unspoken, unseen in the ring unless it's necessary.
Right. Well, I mean, you have your own side of the story that you have to make sure is told in there as well. You're the third man in the ring, and your job is just as important. Yeah.
Like the whole thing with MPX versus TWC right now, that's the thing that I make sure that I need to tell, that I do not like TWC. I'm very disappointed that Nick Caldwell has joined TWC. This is the guy that I trained to be, the one to take over. I was gonna, just slowly fade into obscurity, and he had to go and do something like this, and just put my plans on hold. And on top of that, he made a mockery of the very very thing that I believe in. That's MPX and
Yeah.
the opportunities that place has given me that I don't even deserve, really. I mean, I don't deserve the opportunity that I got back then, but I appreciate it, and I'm very fortunate to work there with the people that I have worked with.
Yeah.
And it's a huge disappointment to see that happen, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I hope that eventually that he comes around and realizes the error of his ways, but time will tell.
Yeah. So I just have a little bit more that I wanted to ask you on here before I get you off. We've kind of come up close to the hour mark on here. And so I didn't get to ask you this a minute ago, but who's your favorite wrestler?
Oh, man. Jeez. You know what? I can't even mention his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
All right. Yeah.
His performance level was beyond par that I could ever mention. I cannot mention his name because I don't want to bring that up, but
right.
As a wrestler,
well,
in that in of itself, he was my favorite wrestler. But I will say this much: my current favorite wrestler that's out there right now, I will have to say, has got to be Finn Balor, and the reason why is because versatility.
Yeah.
He's that guy that has. But here's the thing that I'm waiting for to happen. I'm waiting for him to finally get the opportunity to get that belt back the way he deserves it, because the man hurt his shoulder, and it's like he never had a real opportunity to prove himself back after that.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you've got all these other guys that are coming up and everything else. Don't get me wrong, I like CM Punk, and he's probably him and his name have transcended things.
Yep.
But do I think of him as the best wrestler in the world? No. He's one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
But the best wrestler I've ever seen in my entire life has to be Bret Hart. He's the guy that I got into wrestling to, when I first started watching.
Right.
And I will always say that Bret Hart is probably the wrestler to watch. If anybody wants to study a tape or anything like that, watch just how he does things. It's just completely sound.
Yeah.
Everything he does is fluid. It is complete. He's protected everybody he's ever been to work in the ring with, and there's that. But if I was going to be a wrestler like anybody else, I'd want to wrestle like Mick Foley. That'd be who I wanted to be. But
Mick Foley, yeah, he's great. So my brother actually, for years, he was like, "Yeah, I wrestled with Mick Foley and stuff," and I was like, "Oh, okay." My brother passed away in 2016, and I never really knew much about his wrestling career in Oklahoma. Well, a few months ago, my sister-in-law sent me this flyer from 1989 in Pryor, Oklahoma, and it had my brother's name on there, and one of the other names on there was Cactus Jack as one of the wrestlers in there. And I was able to send it to somebody, and they put it up on like a Oklahoma vintage wrestling page. And just from that, I was able to find out where that happened at, who the promoter was, and what the promoter actually did for a living in real life. So I was like, this is so cool, because I really haven't got to know that much about his wrestling career. And so Mick Foley, he always said that. He's like, "Oh yeah, I used to wrestle with Mankind." And I was like, "Oh, okay," didn't really think much about it until I saw that. And I was like, "This is really cool."
Here's a story I can tell you. So I was training with Killer Tim Brooks one night, and the gentleman Chris Adams comes walking in. I didn't recognize him first because he was wearing a sweater and glasses, and then he stood up and he opened his mouth like, "Oh my God, you're Chris Adams! You're Chris Adams of all people."
Yeah.
And then that's when he got in the ring with me and Clayton, his son.
Yeah.
And rolled around with us for a little bit. And told us a few things and said a few things. And he was just dressed normal, jeans, white off-colored shoes, basically untied, practically untied. He had a gray sweater that had like a hole in it, and he had his hair and it's kind of messy, but he had these big, thick, like old aviator-looking glasses on. But he was very good at teaching us and telling us how things worked and everything.
Yeah.
A week later, I'm over at Killer's house. A week or two later, I'm over at Killer's house, and we find out that Chris got murdered.
Oh wow!
I'll never forget. That was my first and only interaction with Chris Adams. It was and that was the only time that I ever met him, and it ended in tragedy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was sad because it wasn't long after that we did the Killer held a student show at the Waxahachie convenience center out there, and I got to be the referee along with another guy that was one of the students there and everything.
Yeah.
And it was me. I was refereeing Clayton and Killer versus Chad Hart and somebody else whose name escapes me. I can't remember who it was, but it was both Chad and Gary Hart were guys that were there at the time. And I think it was like 19, maybe no, I was like 20, 21 years old at that time.
Okay.
And being in there with those guys from the world class era,
it
just meant that. And the second generation wrestler, here I am, first gen, trying to get in, and it really meant a lot to me when I got to do things like that. Being in the ring with the guys, but yeah, I mean, I think if I could go back in time, that I could probably change a couple things that I've done. I probably would have focused more on wrestling.
Yeah.
Been more involved with it.
Right.
But I don't know. I was facing a lot of things at that point, battling addiction and facing my own demons at the same time.
Yeah.
Dealing with family issues and things like that. It just kind of all, for me, it was a very emotional time and part of my life. And that's when I guess that my escape was music. So I would always focus back on going to metal shows and things like that, when I could have been more focused on what I was doing. And I might not be having this conversation with you. I might be somewhere else. Who knows what things could have been. But looking back now, living where I'm at right now, I have no regrets. I'm very happy with where I'm working at and what I'm doing, and with working with the boys that I'm working with, and I get to talk with them, and I still talk with some of the guys that have taken their boots off and decided to call it a day. And I stick around because I want to make sure that I do what we're all trained to do back in those days, was try to leave the business better than what we got into it. But
Yep. So there was something I ran across when I was doing some research on you, and it says that you know Irish Sign Language.
I know what?
Irish Sign Language.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Oh, I had to ask, man. I saw it and I was like, I've got to ask him about that. So
it doesn't take much to know. Usually, it really kind of involves just how many beers I want to order, what I really think about you, and what I'm really thinking about you. And if you don't see me anymore, it's probably because I'm on the floor and I'm really trying to tell you to get me back up so I can order more. So it's one of those things. Irish Sign Language.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What other research have you found out about me? Ask me questions. Let's get to that portion.
Well, so I had a couple things. It said that you knew how to speak Irish English, Irish, and Irish Sign Language, and then English on there. So I was like, I thought I'd ask him. Thought I'd ask you about that.
No, I don't know where the Irish Sign Language really came from. I think that might have been an inside joke at one point. I had forgotten all about it.
Okay.
mainly the old Irish Sign Language is like, can I have another beer? No, and then I do this, which is
yeah.
It means the same thing, and it's
And
the same. It's it's the Irish way of giving a stone cold salute. Put it that way.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's the only Irish sign language that I know. Or give me that many more, please. Thank you. If you find me off my stool, please put me back on it.
There you
go. Let's see. As far as knowing a little bit of Gaelic, I do. One of my best friends is from Derry, Northern Ireland, and
Okay.
And I talk to him at least a couple times a month nowadays. We used to talk every day, but now it's just a couple times a month. But he was also one of the guys that that really kind of helps me keep on the straight and narrow and everything like that, because he knows what I'm going through.
Yeah,
and even though I'm off the sauce and he's still on it, we still crack jokes, and
yeah, definitely.
Every once in a while he'll say something to me, and then I'll try to remember what it means.
Yeah.
And I never remember it. I never do. I try to write it down. You don't even spell it the same way it sounds. That's weird.
That's what I was about to say is, the way that it's spelled, don't try to pronounce it the way that it's spelled, because it's not going to be right.
No. In Russian, it's a little bit different because you got like 32 letters and they all sound differently, but they all spell it exactly the way it sounds. But the vocabulary, the way they put the vocabulary together, it's just the way that the word structure is, it's not the way we do it. It's different. It's not like Spanish, where in Spanish you take the verb and you put it in front of the noun, or you put it after the noun. You put it, and in English you put the verb in front of the noun, which is weird.
Yeah, so, I feel like we need a Russian lesson from Dimitri now.
You know what? That's the one show I did get to listen to, and I got to listen to what he talked about, and I was like, I'm wondering if when I got into tape trading, if maybe I might have sent him a tape at one time. I want to say that I always thought that name sounded familiar and never really put two and two together. But now that I think about it, I might have sent him a tape from one of my Japanese tapes back in the day, but I don't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun, man. I really enjoyed having him on. And I love doing this. Like I said, this is my last recording of the year, and this has been so much fun. And talking to all these different people and different walks of life, it's a journey in its own right, sitting out here and hearing everybody's stories and getting to talk with them. So I really do appreciate you coming on, man.
It's my pleasure, and I really do appreciate anybody that loves wrestling, that wants to talk to people that just want to see what that we're just normal people that just try to do, what most other people, want to do.
Right.
We try to play the hero, we try to play the villain, we tell the stories, we do it live, and we do it for real. And we hope that whenever you do come to see us, that you leave wanting to see more, that you create your own podcast, that you want to be an announcer or be a part of the show. If you want to sell popcorn, hell, come do it. We'll get you in. We'll get you a place for you. But one thing I will say that wrestling saved my life more times than I can count, and I owe my gratitude for making the effort and having the people that I've been able to work with and the fans that want to see me in there. I owe you all a good debt of gratitude, because I would not be doing this.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for somebody who maybe wants to get into this business?
Absolutely. Okay, here we go. Been waiting for this question to pop up. Look, and I'll shoot straight with you. Right. You can go and be a professional wrestler. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. But it takes a very special person to make it to the very big names, to be in the WWE, to be in the AEW. You have to have this heart that's the size of your entire body, that is willing to do anything and everything it takes to get to a place where you are physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to take on that type of responsibility for not only just you, but the other people that are in that ring with you. If you want to really start learning to eat right, take care of your body. If you want to go to a wrestling school, go to a place where people have a reputable teacher. I will say that one of the best places you can come to is at MPX, because you have Matt Palmer who and you have Athena who comes in there and does her training as well. I mean, that's one of the greatest minds that you could possibly ever talk to, because they've been to the big top. They've been to the big time. They can tell you all the ins and outs of how to make things, better for you as a wrestler and you as a performer. Go to Booker T. Barrett Brown is a good person to go and learn wrestling for. My point is, excuse me. My point is, go to a school where people have actually made a name for themselves, and don't go learn from some guy that's going to teach you on top of a bunch of barrels and some plywood with some garden hose as a rope in his backyard. Go to a reputable school that has a facility where you learn how to not only to perform, but to protect yourself in this business.
Yeah.
And the rest of it will come in time.
All right.
Don't expect to be a world champion within your first year either, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they're trusting you with, being the face of that company.
And don't go to a place that touts that they have a world heavyweight champion. I'll just say that much too.
Yeah,
I'll just say that. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
you can have a champion, but you can't have a world champion. I'm sorry, that just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So,
yeah. All right, man. Is there anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about or announce?
Yes. One thing I will say is that I will be performing at Metroplex Wrestling on the regular every Saturday night in Bedford, Texas. The show always starts at 8. We open doors at 7:30. You can catch us the first half of our show on Twitch. I also perform at Mat War Pro. We do a show at least once every other month. Our next show is going to be at the South Preservation Hall in Fort Worth on January. I want to say January the 6th, but I could be wrong about that. I have to check my calendar. But we are going to be performing at the South Preservation Hall, and we have we have a very good. It's different than what you see at MPX. It's 2 different shows, but it's also wrestling. We're not trying to compete with one another.
Yeah.
We're just performing for everybody else around. If anybody is interested in having bookings, please feel free to contact me on my Facebook page or on my Instagram, and I will be more than happy to discuss terms and conditions on whether or not where I can perform with y'all. If that's the case, then we'll go from there.
Right.
And thank you, sir, for allowing me to ramble on about absolutely nothing on this wrestling show that you have. And I'm sorry that I completely wasted your time, and I didn't tell you anything that you needed to know.
Oh, no, this has been great. I mean, I call it If You Give a Data podcast for a reason, because you never know what's going to happen on here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got more stories. If you ever need to hear some more, just let me know, and I'll be back on.
Definitely, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to set it up to get you back on, man.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. And for all those that are seeing the last show of the year, you're welcome. It was me. It was me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin.
Have a good one, man.
All right. Bye.
Generic audio commercial, Zio to Hero, take 43. Hey, listener, it looks like you're having fun over here. Listening to insert generic name here. If you like what you're listening over here, come on over to the Zio to Hero podcast, where you can join Billy and myself, the Bulk and Skull of podcasting. If you want to listen to Ranger Powers, and you want to go into and talk about anime, Gundam. Oh, what did I make up wrong?
You're supposed to say Zio to Hero is the best, and Billy and Jim as Bulk and Skull of podcasting is funnier than any other show out there. And you didn't say Power Rangers right. Get out of here. Do it again.
Fine. Generic audio commercial, Zio to Hero, take number 44. Hey, listener, it looks like you're having fun over here. Listening to insert generic name here.
God!
Oh, come on!
Riddle me this. What do you get when you get 3 Power Ranger fans who also write Power Ranger fan fictions and upload them on separate podcasts and YouTube channels, and you happen to put the 3 of them together and they form a unique Power Ranger storyline? Here's your answer. you get the three Ranger Bros, who is myself, Ty Tiger, the Red Corner Ranger, Mark, and the Cosplay Dude 637. We are the three Ranger Bros, and we came up with the idea called Power Rangers Global, a storyline where 4 different Rangers from different universes team up to save Universe 2118, a universe ruled by the gods. Now, if you want to hear Power Rangers Global, you can find it on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast, and you can find that podcast anywhere that podcast can be listened to. So one more time, that's Power Rangers Global on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Travis Truebourne. He was an amazing guest, and I am really looking forward to maybe getting him back on the show. I think after we got done recording, we probably talked for another hour or so, maybe an hour and a half or something. I know that it was quite a while, and we had a great time. And like I said, I look forward to having him back on the show. So as you guys know, this is my last interview of the year. I will start producing new episodes in January. So you have one more thing that comes out from me this year, and it is going to be a Christmas special. And it should be out, I would say, probably Friday or Saturday. The Friday or Saturday before Christmas. So if you're hearing this on Monday, so you've got just a few days before you get something new, a new treat for If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And whatever else it is that you celebrate, I hope you have a fun and safe time, and I will see you guys next year. But in the meantime, how about you check out some of my podcast networks that I'm a part of? I'm part of the OIW Podcast Network, the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network, and the Avenue Podcast Network. While you're waiting on new episodes to come in January for If You Give a Dad a Podcast, go check them out. Go listen to some of those guys. They have great episodes. They have great shows. All kinds of stuff that you can find there. And I think you're bound to find something that you will enjoy. Check out Cups and Tees by Stasha. She makes all kinds of great custom stuff. All the shirts that you see that I've made, or that she, when I say made, I mean I created them in my head and she made them for me. And all that stuff she does for me, and she does an amazing job. The stickers, and she does all kinds of fun stuff. So if you want something custom made, make sure that you hit her up. Also want to give a shout out to Geek for making my ending theme song for me. I hope to get this guy on again here real soon. I know he has some stuff that's come up that maybe we're going to have to push back him coming on the show again. But I want to get him on in this next year because he's come out with all kinds of great music, and I'd love to talk to him about that. Also want to say thank you to Original Geek Comics for allowing me to be part of their Paladin comic book. They gave me a full-length ad in that comic. I'm going to be doing something really cool with them come around February, so I'm not going to really talk about it too much yet, but just be looking out for a joint project between Original Geek and If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I've got a lot of fun stuff planned in this next year. Also want to say thank you to Diamond State Wrestling for allowing me to be part of their family. If you enjoy indie wrestling and you're looking for something amazing to watch, go look them up, DiamondStateWrestling.com, or you can look them up on YouTube on their Diamond State Wrestling page. You can also find the Rare Cut, which I was originally part of, but now Jake and Jamie are doing that show, and it gets you up to date with everything that's going on with Diamond State Wrestling. But keep watching what they have going on. They have amazing content, and I'm excited to see what this next year brings when it comes to Diamond State Wrestling. So you hear me talk about social media. You hear me say this every week. Go out there and follow me on social media. Just look up If You Give a Dad a Podcast on any of them, and you can find me there. I am so close on 2 different platforms to hitting 1,000 followers when it comes to Facebook and when it comes to TikTok. I am almost to 1,000 followers on both of those. So if you're not following me on there, make sure that you go and follow me on there. I will have a Linktree at the bottom of my show notes that you can follow and find all of my social media on there. Also, if you want to send me an email, send it to giveadadapodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. In fact, this episode was somebody requesting Travis to be on the show. So if you guys want to request somebody to be on the show, just reach out. Send me an email. Send me a message on Facebook. I will try my best to get that person on my show. I've got some big ones that are coming up that have already been scheduled for this next year that I'm extremely excited about. And I think you guys are really going to find these as to be a treat. This first month in January, the ones that I have scheduled, it's a mixture. There's all kinds of great stuff that's going to be going on there. And I think you guys are going to have a blast hearing all of these. But as you're listening right now, make sure that you go out there and you rate and review this episode. Tell me what you think about it, whether you like it, whether you don't. Leave me a 5-star review if you like it. Also, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this and hit the notification bell. That way you are notified the next time something comes out for iGadap. But like I said, go out there, rate this episode, review it, tell me what you think of it. The more people that give me a 5-star rating, the more likely I am to be discovered by somebody else who would love to hear this show too. And as I've always said, I believe this show is for everybody. So make sure that you share this with everybody around you. So we have come to the end of the very last interview episode of the year, and it is time for Billy's favorite part of the episode, and that is Dad Joke of the Week. Why couldn't the sailor finish the alphabet? He kept getting lost at sea.
Oh, man. Woo! Ah, that was funny. Woo, that was too funny. Ah.
All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, though we're blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what I am as well. I don't feel so alone and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.
All right, cool, sweet. Baby Jesus. Okay, cool.